No longer will I carry my mom's pain. Part 3, the final chapter. Thankfully to God, we have never seen or heard from David ever again. But that, my friend, was the beginning of her 20-year drug addiction. She started to get more reckless with making decisions that maybe before she wouldn't have made. As you could imagine, she was in the midst of another whirlwind. She blamed herself for what David had done, and I'm not sure if she ever forgave herself for that. If I'm 100% honest, although the responsibility of his decisions lie strictly on his shoulders alone, my mom made a decision to bring a maniac around people who were not aware of his past. So in my personal opinion, she also should carry some of the responsibility for some of the decisions that he made. From there on out, she only had a couple more serious relationships with like live-in boyfriends. But nothing really, in my opinion, ever really added up to love for her. Of course, there were abuse in those relationships, but nothing like before. I believe it's because my brothers and cousins were now adults, and they started teaming up and whooping all the men that was putting their hands on the women in the family. Before David was up out of there, he got whooped by the YNs of the family. And y'all know what I'm talking about, the young NIGGAs, my brother and cousins. They made a circle around him, put him in the middle, and whooped his tail. Do you understand me? It's almost like they played pinball with him, because one would punch him, he would bounce to the other one, he would punch him, he would bounce to the other, just back and forth like pinball. It was crazy. I was so glad to see somebody other than me and Uncle Steve stand up to this bag of dirt. But I feel like she kind of searched for that love most of her life, if not her whole life. The love of a father and also the love of a mother. Or maybe the protection of a mother, because her mother felt that she was loving her, but she dropped the ball like a lot of us do. We have to do better though, parents. And side note, we can't keep sitting back saying, well, the father didn't do it. Well, what is the father? Well, what about him? Why is it always me? Somebody has to. If he don't, you do it. If she don't, you do it. Somebody has to protect the babies. Give them a fighting chance. Somebody got to protect the babies. What about the children? Anyways, I believe that's why I dedicated my whole life to protecting and trying to love my mom unconditionally, because I could see the search for true love in her eyes. My mom's drug addiction had gotten so bad that right after high school, I moved to Colorado with my dad so that I could go to school. But before I could enroll, and the reason it took me so long to enroll is because I was not a resident. In order to get financial assistance, you had to be a resident for 6 months. So I had to wait 6 months. Well, within that 6 months, I got pregnant. I decided to move back to Oklahoma City with my mom, but the living situation was a lot worse than it was when I left. Another side note, my mom has always let family and friends live with us at one point or another. At one point, when I was a senior in high school, my grandmother died, and all of the family members that were living with my grandmother, which was 13 family members, adults, teenagers, as well as children, all moved into our 2-bedroom condo. The garage was converted into another bedroom, so let's call it a 3-bedroom condo. But that was for my brother. But for some reason, my mom actually gave me the master bedroom. I had the walk-in closet, the master bedroom. It was large. That's one thing I can say about my mom. She was really good about that. She felt like because I was a girl, I wasn't going to share my space with nobody. So although she allowed and let people sleep with her in her bed, my little cousins and stuff slept with her, I didn't have to share my space with nobody, and I appreciate that. However, at this time, it was about 7 people living with us. When I was 19 and pregnant, it was about 7 people living with us at the time. We had no running water, no electricity, no food most of the time. And mind you, it was the winter and it was extremely cold in the house. Long story short, I started selling crack. 2 weeks after I started selling, our house got raided by the police, and me, my mom, my aunt, and my cousin all found ourselves locked up in jail together. Go figure with that. My mom carried the guilt of this situation around with her for the rest of her life. She talked about her regrets concerning this situation all the time. But that, however, is a part of my story and not hers, so I'll talk about that later. Let me focus. I'll never forget my mom saying, "I don't want to be 50 years old smoking crack." My mom was born in 1952, so she would have turned 50 in 2002. Because of her determination and will to stop living the life she had lived for so many years, my mom ended up getting clean when she was 48 years old. She went cold turkey. She did not consult a doctor. She did not ask nobody's permission. She just stopped. At that time, I was in the church. So she started going to church with me and my family. She gave her life to God and started serving in the church, trying to fill the void from the time that she would normally spend hanging out, smoking, and doing all kinds of stuff in the streets. She started spending serving in the church, working in the children's church, ushering, doing whatever she could to serve. Side note, not only did my mom get saved, a lot of my family got saved and clean. Grateful for that. I am truly grateful to Church of the Harvest for accepting her into their church family, because it was not, if it had not been for that church giving her something positive to focus on, I'm not sure she would have been successful in getting clean and staying sober. I wish I could just end her story right there and say success story, but I can't. I believe it was somewhere around 2000 that my mom ended up moving in with me and my family. At the time, my husband and I were married for about 3 years, and we were living in Tulsa, and she moved in with us and helped us a great deal with our children. She was really a big help. One of the only issues was that when my mom gave up crack, she leaned heavily on other substances like pain medication and Xanax. I won't even lie to you. Do I believe that my mom needed the medication? Absolutely, I do. I know she did. As you could imagine, all of the physical abuse, all of the years of physical abuse took its toll on my mom's body. She was always in pain. And don't even get me started on the mental and emotional issues that she had. But because of her addictive nature, she should have never gone to even the legal stuff, because it was just as bad, just as dangerous, just as deadly. For the past 20 years of my mom's life, she had a big addiction to pain medication, Xanax, muscle relaxers, and sleeping aids like Ambien, etc. Now, to be honest, if I had to compare her addiction to the legal stuff versus the illegal stuff, I prefer the legal stuff all day. Of course, my preference is for none of it to exist, but if I had to compare the two, I would prefer the legal stuff over the illegal stuff, because at least you're taking risk. You're not risking your freedom as well as your health and your family. Well, that's until you start going to the streets to get your legal drugs illegally, because the doctors are not normally going to give you as much as you need when you start overusing. And of course, that's something that happened. Not to make this about me, but I actually found myself addicted to the same legal meds that my mom was addicted to. I remember taking my first Xanax when David had killed our family friend. I was so scared that he was going to get out of jail. I remember asking my mom for one, and she gave me a piece of one. So most of my life, whenever there was something wrong, that's what I ran to, pills. At 19 years old, I even gave a piece to my son when he was a baby. How sick. Because he wouldn't stop crying and wouldn't go to sleep. I actually thought I had killed my baby because it was so hard for him to wake up. It took him a long time to wake up. You see how that cycle just keeps repeating itself? We got to do better. But for me, at that time, my belief was, well, if a doctor prescribed it, then it must be okay. Of course, now I know better. But to make a long story short, I had to also get myself clean off of all those drugs. It's now February 2025, and I have not had a prescription pill since the end of 2023. Thank you, Lord. I had to cold turkey it because the doctors were recommending that I not quit the meds, and I wonder why. Can you figure out why? Other than the dentist, which is why my mouth is kind of jacked up and I'm talking a little funny because of my new dentures, I am now clean of everything except for, other than the dentist, I have not been to a doctor since the end of 2023. And you know what? I just had to correct something. I take that back. When I went to the dentist, when they had to pull my teeth, they had to cut my gums from here to here to take the tooth out. It took 45 freaking minutes, and it was bad. So they ended up giving me ibuprofen, and I believe they were Lortabs, if I'm not mistaken. I took the ibuprofen and the Lortabs. I sure did. That was a couple months ago. But I didn't feel like, oh, let me get some more, or I need some, nothing like that. So let me correct that. I am now clean of everything except for marijuana, which, trust me, I plan to keep using as long as they keep it legal and it stays, I plan to keep using it until further notice, of course. But it's only been a couple of years, so anyways. But back to my mom. Closer to the end of my mom's life, I started noticing her getting like really out of hand with her Xanax. I asked some of my family to come over to a few times to check on her because I could tell that something wasn't quite right. But nobody seemed to be able to see what I was seeing. I could see in her eyes something wasn't right. She started acting weird. She started doing weird things. Like one time she went in and she was in the kitchen and the kitchen light was off. But I came in and I just turned it on, not thinking twice about it. But she started talking and kind of talking out of her head, not making a lot of sense. But again, I'm just waking up, so not thinking too much about it. It wasn't until she started to climb on the kitchen counter to go to sleep. And I'm like, Mama, what are you doing? You're trying to climb on the counter. She said, well, I'm trying to lay down and go to sleep. That was scary for me. I called my brother. I went in the closet. I told her, I said, Mama, why don't you come lay in the bed and go to sleep? That might be a little bit more comfortable for you. He said, okay, I'll do that. And so I led her into her bed. I put her in her bed, and I went and got in my closet, and I called my brother. And I was so scared. And I said, please come over here immediately. I need you over here because something's not right. Mama just trying to get on the counter. He came over some hours later, many, many hours later. But again, I think everybody probably thought I was maybe exaggerating, because I do tend to exaggerate. However, I wasn't. So what I did, I started recording my mom so that I could show her what she was doing, because maybe she didn't know. Maybe she didn't remember. Maybe she didn't know. I still to this day have some of the recordings, some of the pictures, but I showed her all of the stuff that she was doing. And not only did she get angry and felt like I shouldn't have been recording her, which I get it, it's kind of like an invasion, right? But she actually laughed at one of the videos. That was hard. That was hard that she laughed about it. She actually started falling all the time and couldn't get up. A couple times I had to sleep on the floor with her because my mom was a heavy lady, as I am, and I couldn't lift her some of the time, so I would sleep on the floor until she would sleep it off. One time I had to call my neighbor, Nate, from upstairs, and he came down at 3 o'clock in the morning to help me get my mom off the floor. I'm forever grateful for Nate. One time he actually also had to bring his friend to help us get her up because we couldn't get her up that time. It really was a lot, as you could imagine. It was a lot. When I would ask my brother or other family members if they could see what I was seeing and what was going on with my mom, nobody was able to see anything somehow. And I get it because I lived there in the house with her 24/7, so I saw things that they couldn't see, and I was there most of the time, so of course they would miss some things. But like I said, I began recording her and I showed her some of the stuff, and like I said, to my surprise, she actually giggled and laughed at the recording. It broke my heart because I was so fearful at that time of my mom's life, and I was showing her when she was, and I was showing her when she was talking out of her head and saying crazy stuff, and she thought it was funny. And I'm gonna be honest, do I really believe she thought it was funny? Maybe no. Maybe it was a nervous laughter or whatever, because I even told her, Mom, anyways, let me finish. Sorry. The last 6 months or so of her life, I was trying to find me a place of my own because I told my mom that I'm not going to sit here and watch you kill yourself. I'm not going to do it. At this point for me, enough was enough. If you want to kill yourself as an adult, you can do that. But I don't have to sit here and watch it, and I'm choosing not to. But thankfully, I couldn't find a place. And I say thankfully because if my mom had passed after I left her, then I would have blamed myself that much more, thinking it was my fault because I should have stayed. And if I was there with her, then maybe she would have lived. I would have been wrong because I was there and she still died, but nonetheless. Mind you, the same year that my mom passed away, my mom's baby brother passed away in the beginning of the year, January of 2021. That was her last brother that was living. My aunt, the one that went to jail with me and my mom, she passed away in June of 2021. And my aunt Doris, her funeral was just a couple weeks before my mom died. So by that time, we had already lost 3 of my mom's siblings. There was only 5 left. My mom was number 4. So needless to say, we were all feeling a little bit heavy around this time. A lot bit heavy. My cousin, who was, I said my aunt and her daughter or my cousin went to jail with me and my mom. This is the same cousin because her mom passed away in June. She came and spent a week with me and my mom. My mom, once she left and went home after her week, my mom started complaining about a stomach ache. Actually, she was in a lot of pain. She even said something like, yeah, the only thing I ate was those macadamia nut cookies that you bought. I was confused because I don't buy macadamia nut cookies. I don't eat them, nor do I buy them. Why is that significant? Because my mom found out earlier that she had diverticulitis, and nuts actually flared up her diverticulitis really, really bad. She spent over 11 days in the hospital one time because the bleeding and pain was so bad after she ate some nuts. I'm not sure if the cookies caused the stomach pain, but she was having a very hard time. She asked me if I would come and lay with her in her bed, and I told her, of course, I was going to come in there anyways. Let me tell you something. One time I actually slept with my mom in her bed we lived in the same house, mind you, for 3 months. The only time I went to my room was to shower and use the bathroom. I slept with my mom constantly for 3 months. So that was something that was normal for us. So of course I was on my way into her room anyways. So I got my anointed oil and I went into my mom's room. I lay with her in her bed and I rubbed oil on her forehead. And I worshiped God. Whenever I would sing a line such as, I love you, Lord. I thank you, Lord. I praise you, Lord. Lord, I thank you. Sorry. Whenever I would sing a line to God, while I was rubbing anointing oil on her head, my mom would repeat what I was singing, but she was whispering it, saying, I love you, Lord. I thank you, Lord. I praise you, Lord. Until she drifted off to sleep. I was so happy because she was in so much pain, she couldn't even rest. So finally she was able to sleep and I was really excited. Throughout the night, I came in and checked on my mom as I've always done in my entire life. I remember when I was younger, I would get in bed with my mom when she was drunk and she wouldn't be moving. So I would shake her just to make her move so I could make sure she was still alive because I didn't know. That night, I actually went as far as to stick my fingers in her nostrils during one of those checks, but I couldn't tell if she was breathing, which was normal, unless she was snoring. I didn't get any movement from her, but because she was in so much pain, I didn't want to shake her. I didn't want to wake her up. She was in so... I just wanted her to rest. So I just covered her up, make sure she was covered up, because her fan was on, of course. Then I went back to sleep. Back in the day, in the wintertime, she would actually sleep with her fan on and the window up. Snow would come through her window. It was a mess, when I tell you that. So her hand was cold, so I covered her body up with her cover. But I woke up around 6 o'clock Monday morning. I was so excited because I realized my mom had slept throughout the night. And not one time did I hear her wake up or cry about being in pain. So I was so excited that she was going to be good and rested for her doctor's appointment that I had set for her that morning with her kidney doctor. I felt that if anyone would explore and see what was really going on with my mom, it would be him. Me and my mom had the same PCP, the same primary care physician, and I took her there to see her, but she really couldn't find anything. She didn't see anything. There was nothing wrong that she could see. For a long time, I struggled with the fact that I didn't come straight out and tell her PCP that I felt she was overtaking her meds. But I've since gotten over that guilt, actually, because I feel that I did what I could without overstepping her privacy. There is such thing. She's an adult. She can make her own decisions. As hard as that was. I got up, went into my mom's room, put my face right into her face as I've done millions of times, and I said, "Winner, wake up." I used to put my face to her face, and she would be like, "Oh, girl, you scared me. You better stop doing that," every day. So I put my face to her face, and I said, "Winner, wake up." But Winner didn't move. I didn't really catch it immediately, but something said, "Open her eyes." And of course, when I did open her eyes, there was no life. I called 911 to tell them to get there because my mom was gone. Then I called my brother and my children so that they could come. After that, I just called the rest of the family, let them come and pay their last respects. So for a few hours, we were all able to spend just a little more time with her as she forever slept. I don't know if my mom passed away from a condition that she had, or if she passed away from many years of drug abuse, or she passed away from the COVID vaccine that we had just gotten 2 weeks before. All I know is life as I once knew it was no more. But I want to give a shout out to my Aunt Kay, because she did her final big one. There were in 2001, there were 5 siblings of my mom's, initially 13, but 12 living. 5 remaining. We lost one in January, one in June, one in October, the beginning of October, I believe it was. Now my mom was the end of October. It leaves us one. The last one to live out of my mom's siblings was my Aunt Kay. She waited until she no longer had to take care of my mama before she closed her eyes for the last time. She was the last one to go. Probably for the past 5 years or so, I have been preparing for this day. I asked God for a long time, Lord, can you please prepare me, because I know my mama won't be here forever. But when I tell you, this pain was worse than when I got a divorce from my husband of 15 years. Mainly because my mama was there at the time. And when I had to scream to the top of my lungs because of the pain I was in, I laid in my mama's bosom. And she held me until the pain went away. But now my mama's gone. So whose bosom do I lay in now? I try my best to lean into God, but there comes a time when you need a physical being sometimes to lean into. When you need the physical touch. A physical word. Within a couple of days of my mom dying, the apartment complex we were living in decided to give me an eviction notice. The only reason they wanted to judge me for the eviction is because the day of the court was the day I had to go view my mom's body. And I didn't care about any eviction at that time. I didn't owe those people no rent money. We paid our rent all throughout COVID on time. But because of whatever was going on with the issues with rent and COVID issues, new management came in and went through everybody's rental history and picked out certain places where the previous managers were giving out credits for renewing your lease, or credits for if things went unfixed for a very long time, they would put credits on your account. But the new people came in and tried to make us pay back all of the credits that was placed on our account from previous years, as if we did something fraudulent, as if we went in there and put the credits in our account. It's ridiculous. We qualified for Section 8 years ago, but because we felt like we could put both of our SSI disability checks together, we could take care of our own rent. We didn't need to Section 8 at that time. So we never got Section 8, but we qualified for it. We even qualified for housing assistance when the COVID situation happened. We didn't apply for any of it because we didn't need it. We could pay our own rent. So not only did I lose my mom I became homeless all at the same time. Thanks to my good old neighbor, Nate, who gave me a call and told me I had a letter on my door because they gave me less than 2 days to get out. But before we put my mom to rest, my family had to pack up and move all of my belongings out, which included the belongings of my brother who had passed away a few years before that. Now all of the weight of my brother's life and my mama's life falls on me in my lap. But I thank God for my family's assistance because I couldn't even function at that time. They had to come in and completely pack us up and move us out. My mom passed away, I believe, on October 24th, 2021, but officially October 25th, 2021. And I was evicted within a couple days. I lived in a hotel room for about 3 months. I had a doctor's appointment one day and came to the South Side, old faithful South Side, and saw these apartments. I decided to stop and ask them if they were leasing and if they had any vacancies. Just so happened the owner was actually in the office. Of course, I didn't know the owner. I didn't know who he was. I just thought it was just a guy hanging out. Although the eviction wasn't on my credit report yet, I was completely honest about what I had just gone through. And he told the receptionist to give me an application, and she did. Long story short, I moved into my first apartment alone, completely alone, March 19, 2022. When I tell you that moving into my first place by myself was the best thing I've ever done. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had my own place before, but I've always had somebody else there. Whether it was my son, my husband, my other children, or my mom, there was always somebody there. Since being here, I have not had one night of fear. Bless the Lord. And I'm in the hood, believe it or not. Have not had one night of fear. Now, don't get me wrong, because of some issues that I was having with a couple neighbors, I did go and buy me some protection a few months ago. I did. And sometimes I still struggle with leaving the house. I still struggle with depression and anxiety issues. But I refuse to let that fear and those issues continue to ruin my life. It wasn't until after I moved over here that I realized that a lot of the fears that I had were not even my fears. They belonged to my mom. They were not my fears. For example, I was raised to be scared to death of cats. But somehow, since I've been over here, I've become the neighborhood cat lady. And I love it. I believe that because I had been taking care of so many other people, when my mom and my brother passed and my children were now grown, I needed something else to take care of to make me feel normal, some sense of normalcy. So I started taking care of the cats. And even though it pisses the leasing office off, I continue to do it because right now the cats is what I have. But I realized that I was carrying my mom's fears. I was carrying my mom's pain. I didn't go through a lot of the things that she went through. But because she shared all of her pain and experiences with me at a very early age, starting at a very early age, we got to do better. Parents, we got to do better. Stop putting our pains and struggles and frustrations and stuff on our children. They're not equipped to handle it. They can't, you can't even handle it. What makes you think a child can? You can't handle it. And I'm not saying this because I'm coming against you. I made mistakes. I raised 3 children. I made mistakes. But I'm saying we got to do better. We cannot continue to allow our children, and sometimes we try to protect them, but we put our children through more stuff than what we went through. It's the craziest thing. We got to do better. Because of all of what my mom shared with me and all of her pain and her experiences, her tragedies and stuff she went through. And I've only just, in this 3 parts, I've only named a few. I internalize it all as if it happened to me. So in my mind, in my heart, in my spirit, I suffered the same tragedy she suffered. It happened to me. So now I found myself 51 years old in 2025 trying to figure out who the hell is Priscilla Ann Watson Jr. Because yes, I am a junior. I was named after my mama. Who am I? And what is my purpose from this point on? I've taken care of people. What is my purpose from this point on? And what does my journey look like? And now, my true journey began. parts. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. I hope you was able to watch all 3 parts. I hope you enjoyed. I hope, more importantly, that you got something, that I said something that would spark something in you, that would encourage you to start your own personal healing journey. Hopefully. But the last thing I want to do is share some pictures of my mom and her family with you. Some of the people that I kind of talked about. I'm going to share some pictures with you. That's my mom and my oldest brother. No, he's not blind. He was closing his eyes on the picture. My mom's mom when she was a little girl. She don't look like a little girl, but she was. That's my Uncle Oscar. And one of his, I don't know if that's the wife that he was living with at the time in Wichita, but that's him. My Uncle Steve and his wife, Marsha, who lived downstairs. She was like a sister to my mom. They lived downstairs from us. He rescued my mom many times from David. That's my my famous Aunt Kay, who lost her eye because of trying to help my mom. That's another picture of my mom's mom and one of her older sisters, when my mom's mom was had gotten older in age. Also assisted in taking care of her. My brother Pooh, that's my middle brother, who passed away. That's my mama. My mama, me, and Pooh. If I'm not mistaken, this was the year that, I think we had bikes right there in the back. This was the Christmas before Wade died, was killed. He was killed in February. This was Christmas. We got 10-speed bikes that year. That was a picture of Wade. He went to jail. I don't know what he was in jail for. I believe that was me and my mama and Wade. That's another picture of Wade and my mama at that, probably the same bar that he died at. This was a picture of my brother's dad, my brother Pooh's dad. This was him and my mom after they got together. This was in 87. Okay. Oh, wow. 87? Oh, I was 13. Okay. That was my mom and my dad when they was together, when they was young, when they was together. Some other family members. My Aunt Teresa, who also went to Wichita with my mom and Aunt Kay, and the one that held my mom's head and said, "Please don't kill my baby sister." That's my Aunt Teresa. She was actually the one above my mom in age. My mama thought she was something else, didn't she? And she was. That's a picture of, they always got together. I told you they always got together. They went out as a family. This is what they did. So all of the pictures, you're going to see them in groups. That's my mama and some cousins and sisters, and they was always in groups. They never went out alone. Always, whether they was at home parties. My Uncle Larry, who passed away in January of 2021. My Uncle Steve, right here. That's me and my mom. Twins, right? After she passed away, I couldn't even look in the mirror sometimes because I looked so much like her. Everybody is up here except for a picture of my mom's dad, a picture of, I don't have in either one of her dads, a picture of David, the one that, the maniac. I refuse to put him up here, although I do have a picture. And my mom's oldest brother, Uncle George, is not on here. I don't have Uncle George. I have the other the other 5 brothers, and all 6 of her sisters. Her 3 children, some of her grandchildren, her mom, her grandmother, the one that liked to eat the sugar cubes, right there in the middle. That's my mama's grandmother who would sneak sugar cubes. That's my grandmother's sister, and this is my grandmother. So just to show you some of my family, so you can get a little view of who is she talking about. These were real people. This is the real story. Again, I just want to tell you thank you so much for hearing our story. I will begin my story shortly. This was actually a picture of my mom and my two brothers. This was my grandfather's funeral. The dad that my mom knew as her dad, he actually passed away just a few months before Wade was murdered. So we went through a lot, just needless to say. We went through a lot like most of us do. But guess what? Just like we ain't gave up, you ain't got to give up either. You ain't got to give up. Yeah, we all go through some stuff. We've all gone through some stuff. We've all had trials and tribulations. We've all had struggles. Some may be worse than others. Some may be longer than others. Some may be, but we've all had our struggles. But guess what? You can come out on the other side if you keep going. Keep going. Keep going. I don't know which way to look. Keep going. I think it's down here. My camera's down here. Keep going. Keep moving. Keep growing. Keep getting better. Keep getting stronger. Keep getting more mature. Keep getting more wise. It gets better. Things get better. And don't give up on your people. Don't give up on yourself, but don't give up on your people either. I never gave up on my mama. I set boundaries with her a lot of times, but I never gave up on my mama. Don't give up on your people. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to my channel. Like my videos, comment. If you got this far, which most people probably didn't, this is my therapy. This is my healing. This is my healing. So it's for me. It's not for anybody else. It's for me. But in my hopes is that somebody else could benefit from it, right? But if nobody else does, I'm benefiting from it. However, if you did get this far, put me a little something in the comments just to say, I'm glad you made it. Say that. I'm glad you made it in the comments if you don't mind. Thank you so much. You have a good one. God bless you.